Alright, hello all you crazy people out there, my name is Dragonite and welcome back to another GameMaker Studio 2 3D tutorial. These video titles get longer every time. So if you're like me, you probably have a couple model creator for GameMaker files floating around your computer that you probably want to use in your 3D games. And unfortunately GameMaker does not provide a built-in method of loading them into the game anymore, the way that they did in GameMaker 8 and GameMaker 7 and Studio 1 and a couple other previous versions. So it's not impossible to use them. As you can see, I have this this oddly colored barrel here, which was, as you can see, built in Model Creator over here. But you do have to do a little bit of extra work. Now, before I actually start, I should probably mention that a few things. This is for D3D slash GMMOD. I don't even know how you pronounce that files. Things that were created, as I said, in Model Creator for GameMaker. This is not for objects that you create in Blender or Maya or 3ds Max or whatever the other 3D modeling programs are. There are now recently better ways to load 3D objects into GameMaker, and I may or may not make videos covering that at some point in the future. Another thing to note, and this is actually quite useful, is that if you import an old GameMaker project into GameMaker Studio 2 that does use the D3D model load function, you'll get what is known as a compatibility script, which will do the loading for you. It's basically a conversion script between the old D3D model load and the vertex buffer format that GameMaker Studio 2 now uses. And that's quite handy, and also one of the things that told me how to do this properly a while ago. But never mind. First, what I'm going to do is look over at my notes over here, because I did not rehearse this. I'm going to create another object here, and I'm going to call it, let's call it a game object, without the object 2 appended to the end. And I'm going to go into the create event, and I'm going to go and say model equals -1, because we haven't initialized the model to anything that we're creating yet. I'm going to go into the draw event. I'm going to say draw, the regular draw event, and I'm going to go and steal a code from one of my other objects here. By the way, if you don't know how to set up the 3D projection matrices and what have you, I suggest you learn how to do that. I don't know why you would be watching this video if you haven't learned to do that, but just to be absolutely sure, this does build on projection matrices, and I will make the assumption that you know how to use them. We're going to say, instead of vertex submit square, because that was one of the old things that I was using, I'm going to say vertex submit model. And instead of rotating it with the current second, I'm just going to say 0. Going to leave this alone for now. Sprite get texture, sprite decoration, that's fine. And resetting the projection matrix. And I can close out of that for now. I just have to go and actually create one of these things. So I'm going to say in, I think, game world create, I'm going to get rid of all this. That was just for the rotating square that I had on the ground earlier that you might have noticed. And anyway, I'm going to say var barrel, because that was supposed to be a barrel, equals instance create, not layer, but depth. How about 500, 500, depth, and game model. Oh, I called it game object. I thought it was called game model. Anyway, now we'll say barrel dot model equals load model. You could call the script whatever you want, as long as it's consistent across your project. And to make it, again, consistent with the or at least somewhat consistent with the old D3D model load function, we'll pass it a parameter, and we'll call that barrel.d3d. And before I go and implement the script, we'll go into included files. I don't remember if I've talked about included files before, but there you have it. I'm going to go and find that barrel model on my computer. I believe it is in here. I have a lot of 3D models here. And it is barrel.d3d. Where is it? There we go. Did it load? Good, it loaded. Alright, so now we just have to go and write the script to do the loading. And I'm going to call this load model again. You can call it whatever you want as long as it's consistent. And let's see, the first thing that we're going to do is say model equals vertex buffer create.
Hey.
Is that really not the function? Oh, it's vertex create buffer. Alright, and now vertex begin model. And it's going to take a vertex format, which was created up here. I don't know why format add text chord is blue instead of orange. It'll depend on, the exact color will depend on your syntax highlighting settings, but you would think they would be the same color between add normal, add color, add position, and add text coordinate. But never mind. I believe the object that it belongs to is game world and dot operator format.
Hey.
I'm going to move my microphone somewhere else because this is getting in the way of my hands typing on the keyboard. Okay, where was I? Alright, now we're going to go and open the file for reading. So we'll say our file equals file text open read. And this is going to take the parameter that you passed it in over here at the beginning. So that'll be barrel.d through d in my case. And this is where I'm going to take a little break and talk about the format of a GameMaker model file. There are floating around the internet, as you can see here, I have one bookmarked. There are floating around the internet forum posts and such about the structure of a GameMaker model file. And if you're, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so that, whoa. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit, I said, so that you can see what I'm reading. Anyway, this is fairly helpful. It'll tell you, if you open up one of these in Notepad, or Notepad++ or whatever you want, you will see that there is basically a list of numbers. And the first line, this is where I was going in the beginning. I'm all over the place today. But the first line is always going to be a 100. And this is thought to be, I don't know if this has been confirmed or not, but this is thought to be a versioning identifier. So that if the GameMaker updated the D through D format to include, say, other additional information, this would be 101 or 110 or something like that. But anyway, God, I'm all over the place today. We shall say var version equals file text read, not string, but real. And the file that we're going to be reading from is going to be simply file. And now if version equals there is not equal to 100, then there's probably something wrong with this model file and we want to not continue. So we can say show message and an error message along the lines of this. We can destroy the vertex buffer. Is it vertex destroy? Vertex delete. We can close the file and return -1, telling us that there is nothing for us in this file. The second piece of information in the GameMaker model file, this number right here, is going to be the number of things that are contained in the file. And I hate to use the word things because it's like the least descriptive word in the English language. But this will refer to the number of points, vertices, the number of structures like blocks or cones or walls or ellipsoids, or I can't remember what the one I missed was. The number of vertex start and vertex end calls. The number of things, as I said, in the file. As you can see here, there are 650 of them. Anything after this number is going to be probably not there if there's anything after this number in the GameMaker model file like there is here. This is just information that Model Creator stores. You can see GMMC, GameMaker Model Creator, the version, and some other various settings. This isn't important to us. We can go and delete this if you want to, and the file will still operate properly, except it might have some settings reset when you open it in Model Creator the second time. I'm going to undo that and save it because I don't feel like messing around with that. But the essentials that you need to know is that this is not important. So, coming back to GameMaker over here, the second thing that we're going to do, the second thing that we're going to read is var, and I'm just going to call it n, equals file text read real, and file text read line file. If you're not aware of how file input works, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video. I might decide to throw it up on text on the screen at the beginning of the video, but you will want to know how file reading works. Read line here just is going to go and skip from the position in the file that you're reading to and skip to the beginning of the next line. So if I've read the real number here to the next space and my file position is here, it's going to jump me down to the beginning of the next line because that's how text files work. That's just so that the extra information that Model Creator likes to shove in files will not screw up the whole operation. Those of you who have tried using, I believe, P3DC using Model Creator files may know that pain. But anyway, the next thing that I'm going to do is say for I equals 0, I is less than n, I plus plus. We're going to loop through all the contents of this file and read out each of the pieces of information individually. Did I see an 8 in there? Because there's usually 9s. Alright, never mind. I'll explain what I just said in a minute. But anyway, before we do that, we need an array to store this information in. So we can say var line. And line is going to be an array. We'll initialize the array to be 11 values long, so the last index is going to be 10, and we can just say 0 for the time being. And inside this loop, we're going to say a second loop for var j equals 0. How about not negative 9? 0. J is less than 11. J plus plus. That's not a plus plus. I can type fast, but my accuracy is not very good at all when it comes to looking at the screen while I'm typing. Anyway, what we're going to do with this loop is say line, oh my god, line j equals file text read real from file. So again, we're just reading a number from the file instead of a string or the entire line or whatever it might happen to be. And you all are smart. You can see where this is going. We've just looped through the entire contents of the file and read each number individually into the array, and now we just have to do something with that. So the first thing that we're going to do is me explain how the Model Creator files work a little bit more in detail. You might notice that each one of these lines starts with a 9, except for the first and last one, which start with a 0 and a 1. And the first number tells you what kind of information is stored in the rest of the line. And in the case of 0 and 1, that's just telling the GameMaker to do the model start and model end. Or not model start and model end, but model triangle list start and end. And the 9s are a vertex with, counting them off my fingers, normals, color, position, and what's the last one? Texture coordinates. And that is the default values that Model Creator uses. There are other values. As you can see, I hate to keep referring back to this forum post, but it's extremely helpful. If it were to start with a 6, it would simply contain the x, y, z, normal x, normal y, normal z coordinates, vectors if you want to be correct about things. I'll go over the other structures. You can find it here at probably the end of the video. But for now, we're going to say var type, there I go, not doing type properly, equals line of 0. And we're going to switch type. Scroll down a little so that I can see what I'm doing. Let me scroll down to see my notes. Alright, so case 0. Like I said, this is simply a triangle list or line list or point list begin. And we're just going to ignore this for now, because vertex buffers work slightly differently from GameMaker model files or GameMaker D3D models, and we don't need that anymore. If you were to look at the compatibility script that I mentioned at the beginning, you would notice that there is some code that runs here, but I'm going to say it's not very important, because if you are using this to primarily import things from Model Creator, you will not need to worry about that. Case 1, this is the end of the triangle list or line list or point list or whatever you're reading. So we'll also say, ignore this for now. And 2 through 9 is where it gets interesting. I'm going to leave this blank. I'm going to leave these all blank except for 9, which is what I'm going to work on. Because again, this is the most important thing. So the order that Model Creator for GameMaker and old GameMaker Studio will store the information in is the position, the X, Y, and Z position of the point, the vertex, the X, Y, and Z normal of the vertex, the X texture coordinate, the Y texture coordinate, the U and V, the color, which is just a GameMaker color, 0 through 16 million, and the alpha, which is just going to be, I believe, from 0 to 1. Also known as transparency, for those of you not familiar with that term. So we can say var xx equals line 1, y equals line 2. You can't just say x or y because those are built-in variables and will most likely make things go haywire if you try to use them for other purposes. Var zz is line 3. Z is not a built-in variable, but I prefer to say zz just so that it's consistent. Nx is line 4. I don't think I need to narrate this. You all are smart, like I said. Alright, so we've extracted the information, so you don't have to do this, but it just makes your code a little easier to read. The X, Y, Z, normal X, normal Y, normal Z, X texture, Y texture, color, and alpha values. And now I'm going to take advantage of a script that I wrote in the, I believe it was the camera and vertex format video that I made on this. And for those of you who need a refresher or who haven't seen this, it's just a convenient script that adds X, Y, Z, normal X, normal Y, normal Z, color, alpha, X texture, and Y texture to a vertex buffer in one script call, so you don't have to keep typing out this all these function names over and over again. So vertex point add. I am articulate. Vertex point add. And the arguments are the buffer, which is going to be model, because we created that at the beginning of the script. X is XX, Y, Y, Z, Z, NX, NY, and Z. Color, alpha, X text, and Y text. I don't know why, when I wrote the script, I made the order of the vertex format in this order instead of this order. I don't know why I said position, normal, color, and UVs instead of position, normal, UVs, and then color like everything else uses. Unfortunately, adding to vertex buffers is order dependent, so once you create the format, you have to add the vertex data in that order. But anyway, like I said, there is more to this that I will be covering later in the video, if my notes on my other screen can behave. But for the time being, file, text, close. We're going to close the file for reading. Vertex, end, model, and return model. And now this should be the bare bones minimum that you need for getting the models to load to work. And this did not. Why is GameWorld_Square being called? GameWorld.Square. Oh, that's because I went and deleted that line, so I can just comment this out. Alright, foresight. Where's my, I'm just gonna... GameMaker Studio 2 workspaces are kind of a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, and they can be quite confusing to navigate, but once you get used to them, they can be really nice once you get used to how to navigate it. Anyway, this is our barrel, and as you can see, it is upside down. It is floating through it is clipping through the floor. And if I were to go and disable the, over here, if I were to go and disable the background layer, I think that's how you do it. Oh no, it's tiles. You would see that there is a barrel underneath the floor. And that is because of the way that I've set up the camera. It's upside down relative to what it would look like in GameMaker Studio 1. So there's a few ways you can address that. You can say negative XX, or XX. You can say ZZ equals negative line of 3 over here. You can add, instead of a positive ZZ to the vertex point, you can add negative ZZ. You can simply flip the camera upside down, but that is a little more work. And like I said in several other videos, that would probably be the proper way to handle this. but I am in a hurry and I am lazy, so I'm going to say I'm just going to add -ZZ to the vertex buffer. And now when I run the game, you can see that there is the barrel over here, and it's kind of got a weird texture because I changed the texture at the last minute and didn't do anything about it. But anyway, this is a barrel. If I were to go and load in, how about, let's add the bigger one for fun. I need one that doesn't rely on texture because I don't have the texture that I used loaded into the into GameMaker Studio T for this tutorial file. Let's go with rock. This looks like a big rock. Rock C. So in game world, in the create event, I can go over here and say var rock equals instance create depth. Let's put this one at, say, 200. Game object. Rock.model equals load model rock. No, rock C.d through D. And there should indeed be a rock loaded into the game now. Where is it? Okay, so here we go. This is pebbles on the ground. It's not the most pretty looking pebbles, but they're definitely pebbles. That wasn't what I had in mind, but I should have rehearsed this. That's what I get. Anyway, if you came here just so that you could load Model Creator for GameMaker models into GameMaker Studio 2, that's it. My name is Dragonite. Have a nice day. If you're curious still about the other types of information that may or may not be stored in a GameMaker model file, I'll just go over those real quickly. There's actually more, like I alluded to earlier, besides just the points, but I'll get to that in a minute. If the line starts with a 2, and you can see here, I seriously thank whoever this Sorte Games guy who posted this, because this really helped me out a lot. But if it starts with a 2, it's just going to be a point with X, Y, Z and nothing else. So we can take this. We can paste this here. I can get rid of the normal UVs and color. I can zero these out. Actually, I'll default the color to C white, just so that it doesn't show up black. Alpha can be 1, X text can be 0, Y text can be 0. And that's all you have to do if the type is 2. If the type is 3, I'm gonna copy this again. This also takes color information, so we can say var color equals line of 4, var alpha equals line of 5, and instead of C white and 1, I hit the insert key, didn't I? There we go. Instead of C white and 1, we can say color and alpha, and that will pass along the correct information. If it's a 4, it's going to be the vertex position and the texture coordinates, so we can say var x text equals line of 4, y texture coordinate equals line of 5. And here, do this. If the type is a 5, it will be vertex position, vertex texture, and vertex color. Like this. And we can fill in the rest of this script accordingly. If it's a 6, it will be the normal, the position and the normal, the surface normals, var nx equals line 4. And I just thought of this now, but I don't know if, since you inverted the z normal, the z coordinate, if you'll also have to invert the z normal. I believe you will, actually, so I'm going to come down here and do that, just so that this is a little more correct. I should have mentioned that earlier in the video. That just has to do with lighting, the way light is reflected off surfaces. Anyway, 2 more. I'm going to copy this and paste it again. If the type is a 7, there's vertex position, vertex normal, and vertex color. So var, and I keep typing VRA, var color equals line of 7, var alpha equals line of 8. There we go. And lastly, if the type is an 8, there is vertex position, vertex normal, and vertex texture coordinates. No, stop that. And I should probably really comment this so that you can see so that you can like read what's going on without having to interpret the code. But I can save that for another day. I'll just write down to do that before I post this on Google Drive or Mediafire or wherever I usually post these things. There we go. So that is all the vertex types that you can find in a GameMaker model file. There are, as I said earlier, a few other structures that you may find. And these happen to be blocks is 10. I'm actually going to comment this time. 11 would be a cylinder. 12 would be a cone. 13 would be an ellipsoid. 14 would be a wall. And 15 would be a floor. And these you may also find in the GameMaker model creator, whatever I just said, project files or model files, whatever. And as you can see, you can create primitive structures like the blocks and the cones and the ellipsoids and the cylinders and floors and walls. I think I got them all. But it's not recommended that you really do that without converting to the triangles first. At least it wasn't in the past because of the way that GameMaker would handle those structures when it came to rendering them. Nowadays that you have to add the vertices yourself, it's a little bit less of a worry. But anyway, as you can see here, 10 through 15, they all start with the 6 vertex points of the start and the end. They go on to have the horizontal and vertical repetitions of the textures. The cylinder and cone have whether or not the structures are closed at the top and bottom, or at least in the cylinder's case, the top. And the cylinder, cone, and ellipsoid have the precision of the curves that compose the shapes. I'm not going to go and implement all of these in this video. You basically need a lot of patience and a bit of math to derive the other points of all the triangles that would compose these shapes. And this video has been going on for a really long time already, and I don't want to make it go on any longer. If you want to look at the compatibility scripts for loading models and loading primitive structures, I will upload a file that contains those as well in the description of this video, and you can poke through that if you're curious. They contain all the math and the manipulating the points that you would need to do that sort of thing. But for now, I've been rambling for 45 minutes. I hope you found this useful. My name is Dragonite, and I will see you all later.